Well, good morning, everyone. At least it's morning for me. Choppy there. Sorry about that. If we're a little bit framey, I'm not sure why this morning, but hey, that's what's going on out here. Welcome into the Idea Academy live stream, the weekly live stream slash podcast. 33 minutes after morning for you. I hear you out there. Welcome in once again. This is our weekly. Well, it hasn't been as weekly lately, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But this is our weekly live stream where we get to talk about the world of personal development, professional development, and everything in between. Basically, this is a moment for you to embrace your moment of greatness because I believe that everyone has a moment of greatness that is waiting for them, but it's not coming for you. It's up to you to pursue your moment. And that's what we're here to do today. So, welcome in, welcome in. It's good to see you. I imagine we'll probably be a little bit light today, just because it's an early time. It's an unusual time, and the reason that it's an unusual time today for me to be streaming is because it is the holiday season, the Christmas time of year. It's all there's I don't know how many holidays there are that are going on right now, but there's a lot of them. And this time of year, things get kind of crazy, right? They get kind of crazy. Holidays are chaotic, exactly. And I wonder, what do we do to deal with that? The schedule goes out the window. For example, the reason that I am streaming earlier today than I normally would is because I have a luncheon with one of my clients this afternoon. I was invited to a luncheon with one of my clients, and so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and hang out with them today. So that's great, but it disrupts my normal schedule. So how do we keep ourselves kind of sane during this time of year? And that kind of it flows into our topic. But I want to hear if you've got something, if you got something that you use, maybe a technique, maybe it's a scheduling tool, maybe it's something that you use that helps keep you sane and planned and on track during the holiday season. I'd love to hear it. Throw it in the chat. We're live today on Twitch as well as on YouTube. And so if you're watching this live or if you're watching it after the fact, throw it down in the chat. I'd love to hear, throw it in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And also to that point, just a brief commercial, I guess. If you are enjoying this on YouTube and if this content is of any value to you, please do me a favor, like the video so other people can find it and subscribe to the channel. That helps me reach more people with the message that each of us is designed for a positive life, and we have ways to find that positive life. I have no advice other than major ADHD, and I end up being all over the place. That's kind of that's the eternal problem, right? Is that it seems like all the time everything is always calling us. I like when I think in terms of development or when I think in terms of how we kind of live our lives, a lot of times I think in terms of physics. Hey, Ben, welcome in. It's good to see you. I'm so glad you could be here. I know it's an unusual time today, but as it turns out, it worked out. So that's good. I like to think, though, of our lives in terms of physics. And I think of the way that we maneuver through our lives, kind of the same way that different bodies maneuver through the universe. And they are on by different forces. There's this great force, right? That's inertia that says a body that's in motion will tends to stay in motion. And that's amazing because if you push something in space, like if you fire a bullet in space, let's say, the force of that explosion is going to propel you backwards and the bullet forwards, right? And those two objects potentially are going to continue moving in that direction forever, right? Because the law of inertia says that an object in motion is going to tend to stay in motion. But here's the thing, there are other things that act on those bodies as well. So here on Earth, for example, we have friction, which means that when we put something in motion, if you start a ball rolling, eventually it's going to roll against the ground. That rolling against is going to cause friction. That's going to cause the depletion of energy, which is going to slow that thing down over time. Which the lesson that we can learn from this is if we want to keep things moving in our life, we cannot set it and forget it. This is a mistake too many people want. And this plays into our topic today, which, by the way, is work-life balance. We're going to talk a little bit about work-life balance. And if we get to it at the end of the stream, I've got a second topic, and that's all about planning your next move, because we're going into the new year. Everybody's going to be planning what their next move is. Hopefully, you're going to be planning your next move. And I want to talk to you about that. If not today, then definitely on the next stream. We want to talk about that because we want to go into the next year prepared. But I want to talk about this idea of we have inertia, which means that an object in motion tends to stay in motion. It also, by the way, says the opposite. An object at rest tends to stay at rest, which is to say this: if you're not moving, you're never going to move, right? If you want things to move in your life, it is up to you to get them into motion. And once they're in motion, you have to keep them in motion. There is no set it and forget it in life. You can automate certain things, you can create disciplines, but you must constantly be conscious of the progress that you are or are not creating that moves you forward. I'm going to check in with chat here a little bit now. I see it's spinning a little bit up here. John likes to say, it's not that hard, just focus on one thing at a time, but my brain doesn't work that way. Well, I'm going to talk about when I get into the second half of this kitty cat, I'm going to talk about some strategies that I use with some of my coaching clients. And by the way, if you're in the Twitch chat, you can hit !coaching. And that'll give you a little bit of information about my individual coaching programs that I offer. If you're on the YouTube side of things, you can head on over to my website. That's idea, just like I had an idea, ideatrainingacademy.com. And that will get you to a place where you can learn a little bit more about the coaching that I offer. I like to think of myself as the coach for people who don't know why they would need a coach. Because most of us think, well, a coach, like that's something for like really high-powered executives, or maybe it's like a therapist or something like that. No, it's completely different from that, and I'll explain that to you. I'd love to explain that to you one-on-one. You can book a free 30-minute discovery call with me anytime over at ideatrainingacademy.com. Really wish it did, but it doesn't. Thank you. There's the coaching prompt right there. Absolutely, and you can do that by joining the Discord. That's !Discord in the Twitch chat, and it should be pinned to the description in the YouTube as well. So let's talk about this idea of work-life balance, because that's what we seem to constantly be seeking. So let me ask you this first question. You can answer it. You don't have to answer it. It's totally fine. But when do you feel most fulfilled in your work life? So, and I know that some of you, right, your work life is at home, right? Some of you are stay-at-home parents, and so that is your work life. But even then, you have a moment where in that work, you have to find fulfillment. When is it that you find your most fulfillment in your work life? You ever stop to think about that at all? But see, here's part of the problem is when we think about work-life balance, a lot of times we tend to think a lot more about the life than about the work. But the issue is that it's usually not the life part of the equation that's the problem, right? We think of the work part as being the problem because we think of work getting in the way of the enjoyment that we have of our life. Let's see, in chat, I'm seeing fulfilled, knowing my husband and kids are happy and grateful and appreciative of what I do for them. That's great, right? And again, I know that you're somebody who your work is the work of the household. And so that's really meaningful, knowing that moment that everybody's happy, everybody's grateful, everybody appreciates you, right? That's your fulfillment. Let me ask you this question. How many times do you stop to acknowledge that moment of fulfillment? Or how often do you stop to reflect on the fact that you're achieving that state? See, one of the other problems that we have, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, is that we get into the work and we dig into the work and we work hard. We work our brains out because you know what? If you're in this stream, if you're in a personal development stream, you're not here by accident. You're here because you want to get better, because you want to be better, because you believe in growth. But here's the thing. Those of us who are growth focused, a lot of times we get out there and we get to grinding and we get to doing our thing, and we forget about the the fact that a huge part of what we need to do is we need to stop and we need to reflect. And in those moments, when we find ourselves fulfilled, if we do not stop to acknowledge that fact, then we will lose all of the joy that was meant for us in life. I'm going to talk about Brendan Burchard today. I'm reading this book by Brendan Burchard. It's called High Performance Habits. I just got to see him speak last Friday. That was one of the reasons that I was out last Friday. And Brendan Burchard is the best known, the highest paid, the most famous high performance coach in the world. And I have learned so much from Brendan in just the few chances that I've had to interact with him. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm going to be very open and upfront with the fact that almost everything that you hear from me today is going to be standing on his shoulders. It's going to be based on things that I've learned from him. Now I'm going to add a little bit of my own individual spin into that, but a lot of this is going to be it's going to be coming from things that I've read or things that I've heard from Brendan Burchard. Let me catch up with the chat here for a second. I don't, or at least very rarely, because I rarely hear that what I do is appreciated. That's meaningful, right? That's a meaningful thing. So what do we do when we have the need to feel appreciated, but we don't? Or when those around us aren't telling us that we're appreciated, but that's a thing that we need. Now, I'll go back to the six types of working genius, which is the model that I use for organizational health, but I also use it for individual personal development health. And the thing I love about the six types of working genius is it tells us so much. It's a little bit about our personality. That's fine. I'm not in love with personality tools. I think most of us know what our personality is, kind of. But the six types of working genius tells us a lot about the way that we approach work and what brings us energy and what brings us joy. And for example, there are six geniuses, and I have the genius of enablement. And I would assume, Kat, that you probably have the genius of enablement too. The genius of enablement is the genius of being able to come alongside people and do what they need done to come in. It's really about serving people. That's really about what the genius of enablement is. It's about serving people specifically by giving them what they need. Now, the thing about this, the thing that you have to understand is that people who have the genius of enablement, like myself, we really need to know that what we're doing is helping. We really need to know that what we're doing is needed. In fact, the shadow side of that, when it becomes a darkness in our life, our genius turns inward on itself and it becomes not just a need to help, but a need to be needed, right? When you find yourself needing to be needed, that's what in the world of psychology they would call codependency, right? But when you find yourself possessed with a need to be needed, that's when you know that your genius has moved into a shadow. But the thing to remember is that if you are a person who has the genius of enablement, then that means you need to be acknowledged, right? You need to know, you need checkpoints to know, hey, is what I'm doing meaningful? So here is I'm just going to give you my quick fix for this. I make sure that the people around me know that I need that. And how do I make sure that they know that? I tell them. Every time I enter into a new relationship with somebody, early on in the relationship, I make sure they know, hey, I just want you to know, one of my biggest goals in life is to help other people. My mission in life is to help introduce people to the best version of themselves, in fact. But as a result, it's really important for me to know if I'm helping. So if anything that I do helps you, if there's any way in which, I've given you something that's of value, it's kind of like these YouTube videos where I'm saying, hey, just click on the like button, right? If it could just hit the subscribe button for me. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does two things. It helps other people get the message, and it helps me know that I helped somebody today. And I need that. So my recommendation for those who need to feel appreciated but aren't feeling appreciated is take the time and let the people in your life know, hey, I just need to check in. Am I helping? And don't lie to me. Don't try and make me feel better. Am I helping? Is what I'm doing of value? Because if not, maybe I need to change what I'm doing, right? So that's a way that we can check in with the other people around us. I do this with my wife all the time. Sometimes, and she's pretty good about it because she knows. We've had this conversation for a long time, but a lot of times I'll go with her. I'm like, hey, I just need to check in. I feel like I'm ineffective. And then my wife is able to tell me, you know what? Why are you feeling ineffective? Maybe it's because you're not doing the things that you need to do. Or she can tell me, listen, you're providing everything that needs to be provided in this relationship. And that's a moment where I can check in with her. I can get an honest answer, check in with people that you trust, and that will help you get some of the fulfillment that you need. Now, I saw here, I see this. I'm in an oddly unique situation where my job is a minimal effort situation. So my main issues come from home life because I mainly have no home life. Now, that's really, really interesting because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of times when we feel out of balance, and as you know, if you've listened to the podcast before, if you've watched the live streams before, I'm not a giant fan of the idea of balance. In fact, I think that systems in the universe actually exist with intention, not within balance so much. But we're going to use balance today because this idea that we have work-life balance is very prolific in our society, especially it seems lately. I'm not going to say that it's historically it's always around, but it seems like that we're talking about it maybe more within the last few years than we had been in the past. I think a part of that goes back to COVID and when everybody kind of was home for a moment, then we go back out into the workforce and it's there's this feeling of being out of balance, right? But what does it mean when your life is out of balance the other way, right? When you feel like you don't have a home life. What do you do? How do you bring that back into balance? Communicate is exactly right. Let's see. Catching up in chat, I can see that with me. It's literally my life. It's pretty much like feedback. You're doing great, or this could be better, or whatnot. John and I spoke about doing check ins with each other, but then we never find the time to do so. That's great. So, in section two today, uh, Kat, we're going to talk about exactly that about why we don't find the time to do the things that we need to do or that we want to do, right? So, all right, so let's jump into this today. Let's talk about the work life balance myth. And I think it is a myth. I think it is a myth, and here is why. I think that, first of all, as I mentioned, I don't think systems in the universe were designed by balance. Now, I happen to be a believer in God, so I happen to believe that the universe was created in such a way that things exist in a system of tension, in a system of perfect tension. But if you don't believe that, if you just believe that the natural universe takes care of itself, you have to understand that things exist in an exact way. There would be no way for life to exist on this planet if everything wasn't dialed down to the exact perfect number. I saw Erwin McManus also when I saw Brendan Burchard this last week, and Erwin talked about the fact that human beings we're the frailest creatures in the whole world, right? If you look at a human, we're we don't really have good coverings to protect ourselves against the elements. We don't really have good natural weapons to protect ourselves from predators. As he said it, Irwin said, there's no tiger that's afraid of you. And there's no animal in the animal kingdom that if it gets into a room naked with you is going to be scared of you unless it's a lot smaller than you and it's afraid of being stepped on. So everything exists in perfect tension in the universe, perfect balance, if you will. But we so often find ourselves out of balance. Why is that? Well, here's the first thing, right? The first thing that I believe, and by the way, if you like the show notes from this show, I have an outline of the show of everything that I'm going to talk about today, and then I also have two free gifts to go along with that. These are two different frameworks, two different practices. One of them is a challenge, and the second one is a framework. And these are two things that can help you get your life ordered and balanced in the way that we're going to talk about today, and also propelled forward into the next thing. So if you would like those, then please, by all means, go to the Idea Training Academy website. Right up at the top of that, you're going to find a box where you can put your email address in. All you got to do is put your email address in there. I will send you the show notes from this particular episode. I will send you both of those free gifts, and I will send you as a bonus free gift, I will send you a copy of my Idea Academy planner that helps you set yourself up on a weekly and a daily basis for success through the 7 commitments, which I won't talk about today, but we'll talk about that again on an ongoing basis. Here is the common misconception that people fall into when they fall into work life balance. Work life balance, most people believe, is about time. The reason most people feel out of balance is because they believe that balance is a question of time. Meaning that if I am spending 8 hours at work, then I should be able to spend 8 hours doing my home life, right? Now, we know we only have 24 hours in a day. So 24 hours in a day, if you do the math, right? You've got 8 hours at work, 8 hours at home. You should be sleeping for, 6 to 8 hours. At the very least, you should be getting 6 hours of sleep, but 6 to 8 hours. So if you got 8 hours at work, 8 hours at home, and 8 hours of sleep, then things are in a very delicate, very specific type of balance, right? And so if any one of those things, oh, if I got to stay 2 hours late at work, or if I've got a situation at home that's really taking time out, then things are out of balance. That's the myth. That's the myth. The common misconception about work life balance is that it's about creating a 50-50 split of what I consider to be work and what I consider to be time. Like 24 hours in a day isn't enough time. I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep and it's not even restful sleep. So, Kat, I hear you there. I was like that a lot of my life until about 2 years ago. I started working very specifically on my sleep. And I'll tell you what, if you want to be more productive, if you want to be better at everything you do, and this is the weird thing, right? It's like a magic, right? It's a magical thing. If you want to find that extra time in your day, start with your sleep. Start with your sleep and start on the quality of your sleep, because quantity of sleep is something that you will discover as you start to unpack how to organize your life in such a way that that it's not chaos all the time. But start with the quality of your sleep, and there's a lot of things and a lot of techniques that you can do for that. We can talk about that later, but that's where you would start, because what you'll find is when you're getting when you're getting high quality sleep, you're going to get a lot more done in a 24-hour period. But that's all going back, right? Counting hours is the very thing that leads us astray. Because what I'm here to tell you today is that it is not about the quantity of time that you spend at work, and it's not about the quantity of time that you spend in your home life. It's not about the quantity. I won't start to get quality sleep until Lucian stops nursing off me. That's true. Babies do throw things out of line. Babies do throw things out of line. There's still some things that you could do, right? There's still some supports for nursing mothers that you can find out there. Maybe I can link you back to some of those as well. So there's still some ways that you can move towards maximizing. I talk about optimizing versus maximizing in my book that's coming out this year. It's called Be Great, and it's all about the way to live the biggest life that you possibly can. And I talk about this idea of optimizing versus maximizing. And a lot of times people think, "Oh, I have to optimize everything in my life. My sleep has got to be perfectly dialed in, and I've got to have my schedule exactly dialed in, and I have every single thing that I do in my life has got to be optimized if I'm going to find that moment of greatness." But you can't optimize everything in your life. It's not possible, right? There are babies, there are other commitments, there are things. Not everything can be optimized. So the question is, what do you do when you can't optimize everything? And the answer is you maximize it, right? So maximizing means doing the best we can with what we have, and not just saying, well, it is what it is. By the way, don't ever let me catch you saying it is what it is, because it is not what it is. It is what it is giving up. It is abdication. It is giving up your right to be in control of your life. And you are in control of your life. Now, there are some things that will always be out of control, but If you're controlling the things that you can control, then you're in control of your life. So it's all about maximizing, which is not just going, it is what it is, whatever. I'm never gonna get, the sleep that I need, right? It's about, okay, well, but what do I do? How do I at least maximize this? How do I get the best that I possibly can? John's favorite phrase, it is what it is. I'll tell you what, uh, I've worked with hundreds of really high achieving people. And I don't want to knock people for this. I know it's common, it's popular. I even catch my wife saying it from time to time. I even catch myself wanting to say it. It is what it is. It's out of my control. But when you get into that mindset, so much of what we do is the way we think about things. So if you want to be a positive person, if you want to be someone who's moving forward in life and not standing still or staying back, you've got to look at the way that you talk about things. The Bible says, what comes out of your mouth, right, is what makes you. It's not what goes into a person's mouth that makes them unclean, but what comes out of their mouth that makes them unclean, right? The idea is that what you say says something about who you are. So we can't afford to be careless with our speech. We can't afford to be careless with our communication. If we are growth developed people, we have to be intentional, right down to the phrases that come out of our mouth. So I don't love it is what it is, because it is not what it is. I wrote a blog post on this. If you head on over to ideatrainingacademy.com, to the website there, I apologize for plugging it 9 times. But if you head over there, you'll find a list of my blog posts, and one of them is It Isn't What It Is. And you can read all about that there. But we have to be very intentional. So if it's not about quantity of time, right? If it's not about the amount of time that we're spending at home versus the amount of time that we're spending at work, or the amount of time that we're spending, with our family versus the amount of time that we're spending, doing whatever we do professionally. It's not about that. Then what is it about? What is it about? If you're old like me, and I doubt that many of you are, but if you're older like me, you will probably remember back in the 80s, we made a lot of fun of there was kind of a psychological community that was talking about parenting in the 80s, and they talked about quality time, right? Quality time. It's all about spending quality time with your kids. And so what happened, right? That what was in the public eye at least was that people would go and they would spend 20 hours at work, and they would come home and they would spend an hour like playing catch with their kid, and then that would be their quality time, and then they would just beg off, and that would be it. But that's not what I'm talking about. But I am saying that the quality of the time that you spend is more important than the quantity of the time that you spend. So the question becomes, how do you maximize or optimize even the quality of time that you're spending in every arena in your life? See, it's not about equal time. We want to make it about equal time, but it is about equal attention and equal energy. If you want to spend your attention, if you want to make sure your attention is on something, it comes with intention. And I'm going to go back. I'm borrowing from Brendan Bouchard again. Please make sure that we know I'm quoting Brendan here. But he says that high performers, one of the things that's consistent, and now he's studied thousands of these people. One of the things that's consistent with high performers is they manage their energy. They manage their energy, and especially from task to task, in their transitions, they manage the energy. Did you know that multitasking is fake news? A lot of people will tell me, especially the people that I coach that are high performers. A lot of people will tell me, I'm a good multitasker. It's not true. No one is a good multitasker. The human brain, in fact, is not designed to multitask. You cannot multitask. You may believe that you're multitasking, but in fact, you're not doing that. Because multitasking literally means you're doing two things at once, but you're not doing two things at once. In fact, your brain is never doing two things at once. What your brain is doing, in fact, is switching constantly between two different things, at least two different things, maybe multiple different things. And every time your brain makes a switch, it comes with a cost, and that cost is to your energy. Did you know your brain consumes most of the energy that your whole body produces? That the vast majority of the calories that you consume go into your brain, which is funny because if all the calories are going to my brain, I don't understand why I have to keep going to the gym every day just to keep my weight at a realistic level. But it's true. I think I want to say somewhere around 80% of all the calories you consume go into your brain. And so here's the thing: if your CPU up here is already running at a really high cycle, and then you introduce task switching into it without some kind of way to manage that task switching, then what's going to happen is it's going to be like having a million browser tabs open all the time. Over time, even though some of those things are running in the background, they're going to degrade your performance. And the one thing we want to do if we're growing, we don't want anything in our lives that can degrade our performance. I'm eating, chopping apples, and listening to you. Yes. So there are two things that I'll talk about here. The first one is this is more of an Andrew Burkham kind of thing. I'm going to get to the Brendan Burchard thing, which is probably better in a second. But the Andrew Burkham kind of thing is this: put stuff on auto pay. I talk about auto pay. I've been talking about this for, I don't know, like a year. It came up with one of my coaching clients about a year ago. And I'm like, hey, you need to put a lot of stuff in your life on auto pay. What does it mean? What do I mean when I say auto pay? Well, I was talking to this coaching client literally about their finances initially. But as it turned out, this concept moved into almost every aspect of their life. And that was this: you need to build disciplines. Remember, the D in Idea Academy stands for disciplines. You need to build disciplines that are automated. You need to be able to do some things without thinking about them. Now, again, that's really fake news. Your brain is always going to think about everything that you do. But the more you can move things into your unconscious or your subconscious, the more you can move things out of that conscious process, the more that they will provide energy for you to be conscious on other things. That will reduce the amount of that switch cost that we talked about. So, what you have to keep in mind is that it's the conscious things that always matter, though. So, the conscious things are the things that make us grow most of the time. So, we want to have a lot of energy for being conscious, for being in the moment. Excuse me. This is one of the reasons I don't listen to music while I work. I don't listen to podcasts while I work. Those kinds of things. I don't try and put anything else that would put information into my brain when I'm doing dedicated work. And we'll talk more about dedicated work a little bit later on. Probably won't get to it today looking at the clock, but dedicated work is definitely something that we'll talk about today. So, first thing is automate what you can. Make, disciplines like brushing your teeth. Brush your teeth in such a way that you don't have to think about it. That's one of the things Irwin said again this last week. He's like, I brush my teeth every day the same way because I don't want to think later on about whether or not I brush the back of my top teeth, right? My mind runs so much that sometimes I feel like my day just flies or floats, like out of body kind of thing. I don't know what that is about. Yeah, if I had to guess, right, what I would say is you probably need to create additional structures around being reflective. Because when we feel like it's like that moment, you ever drive to some place that you drive to all the time and you get there and you realize you have no conscious memory of the path that you took to get there because you just went into autopilot? When we don't create stop checkpoints throughout our day, a lot of times we get to the end of the day and we have no idea what we've accomplished. And that's part of why we feel work and life are out of balance, because we get to the end of that work day and we know we've worked really, really hard. And we could probably, if it was talking about your work, you could probably go back and tell me all of the things that you did at work yesterday. I can tell you all the things that I did at work yesterday. I had a meeting with some consulting clients. I had an interview. I had an executive level meeting, right? I drove to and from all those meetings. I could tell you almost down to the letter exactly all of the things that I did. But then when it comes to our personal life, we think we need to go into this relaxation mode, and I'm not saying that you've gotta be, like, uptight about your personal life, but we go into a relaxation mode, and something about us tells us that that means we need to shut all the executive functions off. We just need to recover, but that's not really the way you're designed to work. You're designed to recognize and reflect on the things that happen to you. That's why we have a memory. And by the way, your memory is specifically designed to move you forward. It is designed to keep you moving forward, not to continue pulling you back into some kind of nostalgic retroactive prison. So, I would say typically what you need to do, if you feel like you get to the end of your day, your personal day or your work day, either way. If you get to the end of an activity and you feel like you just floated through it, you need to set checkpoints. And here's the tip that I'm going to give you. Take your phone right now. Take your phone out and I want you to set 4 alarms. 4 alarms on your phone. Space them about 2 hours apart. So we're going to cover an 8-hour period with this. And every time that alarm goes off, I want you to stop what you're doing, whatever it is. Anything, there's almost nothing unless you're driving, right? Obviously, you got to be safe. But whatever activity you're in the middle of, if you're driving as soon as you can, you need to stop what you're doing, and I want you to take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's all I'm asking. Set a 30-second timer, and I want you just to think to yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? This is actually an old, almost like an old acting exercise that I used to do when I used to teach acting. We would do what we call sort of a sensory or an emotional inventory. Rather, this comes from Eric Morris, who's an amazing acting coach that I've studied, and this emotional uh, inventory, we would close our eyes as actors and we would just say, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? What am I feeling? What am I feeling? Just repeating that over and over again as a mantra to ourselves until we could start to internally answer the question, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I'm in front of a camera, right? And being honest with ourselves about that. What am I feeling? I'm feeling a little bit of headache because maybe I didn't, get exactly the amount of hydration that I needed today, right? Going through all of those things. Let's see. I can be driving. My mind is just going, but it sounds silent. Then I get to my destination. I'm like, oh, we're here. You know what? Most of us do that. My therapist says she thinks I have extremely high cortisol levels. That's that's good for her to recognize. What she should be doing is, and what she hopefully is doing, is helping you build techniques to reduce those cortisol levels. Because even in people who naturally produce more cortisol, and you need cortisol, by the way, cortisol is something that you need for high performance. It's something you need for survival. One of the reasons people don't get good enough sleep is because they don't manage the proper amount of cortisol that they're getting first thing in the morning. People get up and the first thing they look at is a blue screen, right? A blue light screen, right? Or which I mean, again, you want blue light wavelengths in your eyes in the morning, but you want those wavelengths to come from natural sunlight. And and so one of the things, for example, that Andrew Huberman talks about is that one of the first things you need to do as soon as you wake up, as soon as you can, you need to get as much bright light into your eyes as you possibly can, because that spikes your cortisol, which you want first thing in the morning, because that spike in cortisol actually resets your clock so that, roughly 12 hours later, your brain starts to go, okay, it's about time to sleep. And that's calmed down lately. It was extremely high a few months ago for a little over a year. Yeah. I mean, stress, right? That's the killer. That's the thing that we have to manage. So okay, let me get to the Burchard technique here. And this is the way that you manage your energy through transitions, he says. I love this. I love this so much. It is simple, but do it. Just try it for me. If you don't believe in it, if you don't believe in any of this, just try it for me. Give it a shot. What I want you to do, I still want you to set the 4 timers per day, and I want you to spend 30 seconds saying, "What am I doing right now?" Right? Make that mental note of what you're doing, because the more you do that, the more you will get to the end of that 8 hours and you'll go, "Oh, I know what I did," because at those 4 intervals, I stopped and recognized what I was doing. But Burchard says this. He says that when you are in a transition, it's all about releasing tension. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to release the tension. And so the way he puts it is you close your eyes and you just repeat a mantra to yourself like release. He says he just uses the word release. And he just says it to himself over and over and over again, release, 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 release. And as he's saying that, you start to find the places in your body where the tension sits, if it's in your shoulders or if it's in your neck, and you start to release, start to let that go, start to release that tension, release. So first you have to release the intention. And then when you have to release the tension. So once that tension's out of your body, or once it's reduced, then you need to set an intention. See, the reason that we don't show up in our personal lives the way that we want to, the way that we would like to, is that we often don't create an intention for how we want to show up. I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning of the episode when I talked about the idea of inertia, that a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless another force acts on it. And the fact that here on Earth, friction and gravity work on things to slow them down. So if you've got a ball that's rolling along, it's eventually going to slow to a stop. What do? You can kick the ball. It, what you can kick the ball, and that will start it moving. That'll keep it in motion. So what is the ball kick, if you will, allow me? What is the kick to the ball that you need to keep your life moving? And it's this: it's intention. Intention says, how do I want to show up in this next moment? So, when I come home from work, if I've been out visiting with clients, or I've been out in the field, or out doing interviews, or whatever it is, I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna close my eyes. I'm gonna release that tension, and then I'm gonna say, okay, how do I want to show up? Who do I want to be for my family? Right. I've started doing this recently. I've started being intentional about how I spend the last portion of my day. And the last portion of my day, a lot of times I'll do a live stream that'll go into the evening. And then after that, I'll usually go out and have dinner with my family. And then I'll spend, probably a couple hours just hanging out with my wife. We've got, some stuff that we like to watch on TV. Maybe we're just talking about something that's going on. Hey, Chris, how's it going? Welcome in. Chris, I love the question. I'm gonna get to it in just a second. So I have been intention, and my intention lately for that couple of hours with my wife is I'm gonna be present. I'm going to be present. Because how many times do you find yourself sitting in the room with your partner, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, right? And you're both on your phones, and you've got something on the TV, but you're both scrolling or playing your games or whatever else, right? How often does that happen to you? Happens to me a lot. And as I reflected on the way I was spending my evenings with my wife, I realized that that's exactly what I was doing. I was decompressing from my day by scrolling through, right? Scrolling, 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 while I had some YouTube video on the TV, and I couldn't even tell you what it was, right? And my wife is sitting next to me, so I'm there, but was I present? And so my intention now is I'm going to be present in those last 2 hours of the day. When I have an opportunity to spend it with my wife, my phone goes in the bedroom. I've got a charger on the bedstand. My phone goes on the charger. My watch comes off because I get notifications on my watch. My watch goes on the charger, and I go out and I sit with my wife. And that's it. And if we're watching something on TV, then I watch it, right? But I am present in that moment. I am paying attention to what's going on, to the conversation that we're having. My intention is to be present. How much of your life are you spending present right now? And I'm not going to be the phone Nazi, guys. I'm not going to tell you, hey, get rid of all your phones and get rid of them. But I am going to say there may be a time, if you're floating through your life, there may be a time when the phone needs to go away. And it may, I'm not going to say it may, it does need to be intentional. You need to set the intention. So that's how you keep things moving. Chris, welcome in, by the way, and let me read your question again. How do you not feel guilty from not doing anything? Relaxing, if that makes sense. Yes, that makes perfect sense, actually. How do you not feel guilty from not doing anything? It's this. The first thing is you recognize that relaxing is not doing anything. In fact, relaxing is a vitally important part of your life. You've got to recharge. Your body cannot exist in a continuous state of unbridled physical and mental activity, right? So give yourself a little bit of grace. But on the other hand, here's what I will say, Chris. Don't give yourself too much grace because we want to swing that pendulum all the time, right? I talk a lot about the great pendulum that we swing from, and you can see this recently, right? We swing from the country being very politically conservative to it being very politically liberal, or whatever else, right? But we swing to these great extremes. It's like we have two political candidates, and we can't have anybody who actually is in the center, because for us to feel good about things, we've got to know where the ends of those pendulum swings are. As a society, for some reason, this is how we are. But we're like this as humans too. And so there's something about us that wants to believe that if we're not working a million miles a minute, we're not grinding away, then we're not doing anything of value. But there's also something about us that tells us if we're not relaxing completely, if we're not shut off, then we're not really relaxing. And the problem with most of us is that we relax too hard. We relax way harder than we should, right? And it's not that we should feel guilty about taking our time for ourselves. It's that we should feel guilty about not doing it with intention. So when you're relaxing, if you're relaxing with intention, there's no reason to feel guilty for it, right? But the difference is, how do you not feel guilty? You don't feel guilty by saying, I am doing this on purpose. The purpose is so that I can be more productive in my next moment, right? So when I go away on a vacation, I go away with an intention. I'm going to shut off from things. I'm going to turn things off. I'm not going to connect with things. I'm not going to post a bunch to social media. I'm not going to do live streams, because my intention is I'm going to clear all of that for a second. Then I'm going to forget about all of it. I'm always coming up with ideas and thinking and thoughts, right? I'm going to clear all of that for a second. I'm going to intentionally spend time with my family, because I know that that's going to re-energize me, that I'm going to get better ideas, that things are going to happen. My issue, John scolds me that I need to relax, but I feel guilty that I'm taking time to relax, that I could be doing something around the house. Again, the high stress in my brain. So, yeah, I would say in that particular case, you need to let yourself off the hook there, right? And again, the best way to do it is, what do we say when we, as people with the genius of enablement, when we need feedback from other people? We need to tell them that we need feedback. Your body is the same way. Your brain is the same way. If you want your brain to think a certain way, you need to tell your brain what to think. You are in control of your brain. Your brain is not in control of you. Let me say it again. You are in control of your brain. Your brain is not in control of you. I am speaking as someone who has suffered with depression. I am speaking as someone who has suffered with anxiety most of my life, all of those things, right? And I am here to tell you, you are in control of your brain. Your brain is not in control of you. But you have to tell yourself what to think, right? And so you have to have those moments where you're like, hey, I'm going to take some time and I'm going to sit and I'm going to recharge. But how are you going to sit and recharge? Like for me, am I going to scroll through social media for an hour? Is that really going to recharge me? Or am I going to get upset because I see 30 things that I don't agree with and that I want to argue with, and then I have to discipline myself to not argue with, right? Or is it just going to shut off all of my brain because I'm watching cute baby videos, which, by the way, is my favorite thing in the world, right? A- And then just like while I'm doing that, it's just like eating a bowl of candy for dinner. No, no, I'm gonna say, "Listen, this is my time to relax." So maybe I'm gonna do it with my wife. Maybe we're gonna watch something on TV that we can have a conversation about. Maybe I'm gonna spend 30 minutes, which as I do every morning, I'm gonna spend 30 minutes just in prayer and meditation. That's what it is for me. It's like I spend that 30 minutes, and I will tell you what, for 30 minutes, I lay flat on my bed. Sometimes I even fall asleep. Don't tell anybody. Occasionally I fall asleep, but I lay flat on my bed for 30 minutes, and everybody knows, like, the door is shut, nobody comes in, nobody talks to me. My phone goes into do not disturb mode. No, nobody has access to me during that 30 minutes, because that 30 minutes, I come out of that 30 minutes ready to go into the day. So I tell myself, "Hey, I'm gonna spend this 30 minutes." And yeah, I'm gonna check every email that came in this morning. And I'm gonna have to get to that eventually. I'm gonna have to get to a plan for this or that or the other. I did this, by the way, literally right before I came on this morning. I make time for it every day, but I don't feel guilty about those 30 minutes when I'm not doing things. because I know that when I come out of that, I am better. So give yourself permission to relax because you have an expectation that you'll be better. Past trauma is hard to let go. Allow myself to relax. So I obviously am not a therapist, so I can't speak to our past trauma from a psychological standpoint. What I can say, right? I can give you my experience, and I like everybody. I've got there are traumatic things that have happened in my past. It's not that I've lived a perfect life by any means. I've been really privileged and lucky in a lot of ways, but there comes a time when you make the decision that you are your trauma or your trauma is something that happened to you, right? Because if you are your trauma, if I am my trauma, then that's my identity. That's who I am. So the things that have happened to me become who I am. But if I decide that it's something that happened to me, then again, I have control over my life. I don't have to let those things control me anymore. So again, I'm not a therapist. I'm just speaking to you through my own journey. But what I would say is, if you have a therapist, and everybody should, right? I believe that everybody should have a therapist and everybody should have a coach. And if you're in this stream, you've got a coach. If you'd like some more personal coaching, of course, I can help you with that. But uh, everybody should have a therapist. Everybody should have a coach, right? Because we do two very different things. A therapist is designed to help you understand and deal with your past. A coach is designed to help you envision and pursue your future. That's what we do. So you need both of those pieces, though. So if you do have a therapist, and you should, that therapist should be providing you with strategies to help deal with that, right? So let me get to the kind of the framework here, because I know we're running out of time. So the measurement. Here's the thing: measurement. Brendon Burchard says in his book, if you aren't constantly measuring the major arenas of your life, then you couldn't possibly know what the balance you seek is or is not. So so there's three things that I talked about, right? First thing I said we feel like it's about time. It's not about time. The second thing that I said is we don't have enough intention for the time when we're not on the clock, right? We need to create intention. And the third thing is we don't measure our success in our personal lives. And the reason we feel like we're spending less of the time on our personal lives, or we don't have as much time for those things, is because we're not recognizing what we're achieving in those things. So, like I talked about my meditation practice, right? My prayer and meditation practice a second ago. I can observably tell you that I am better. I'm more ready for the day coming out of that. That is measurable to me. I am more productive, right? When I have the intention to spend time with my wife, when I put that phone away, and I put that watch away, and I don't get any texts, and I don't doom scroll through Instagram, and I'm not thinking of something else, but I'm there, I can tell you what she and I talked about. I can tell you what we watched. I can tell you what we did together. It's measurable. So seek measurement in your life. So here's the framework. I'm going to give you the framework really fast. Take time to celebrate goals. Always take time to celebrate goals. That's in the book, by the way. It's Be Great. It's coming out later this year. I'm working really hard to make this happen, guys. It's my first book. I'm very excited about it. But boy, making a book is complex. I thought writing the book was hard. Getting a book out is really, really hard. But there's a lot in the book about that. Here's a framework I'm going to give for you today, and this framework is the amor framework. Amor, right? Like the Spanish word for love. AMOR. Amor is the framework that I'm going to give you today. And why amor? Well, partially because it hits the letters that I like, but also amor because the framework is like love. It's a lot like love, because love's not an emotion. Love's a discipline. Love is a habit, my friends. If you've been married to anybody for more than 15 minutes, or if you've been together with anybody for more than 15 minutes, you know that love is not an emotion. It's a habit. It's a practice. It is an intention. So, your work life balance framework must also be pursued with intention with emotion, certainly, but also with intellect. We've got to use the intellect. We want to shift from the time balance to the energy and impact balance. We want to make sure we have tools for measuring the quality, different life areas, and we're going to talk about how to audit your current approach. So here's the Amore framework. And again, if you would like to get this in print, I have a tool for you that I'd be glad to share with you. You can just throw your email in at ideatrainingacademy.com, throw it into that very top box, and I will send that to you. If you are watching the if you're watching the live stream or the replay on YouTube, just comment Amore, Amor. Comment Amore, and I will send that to you. I'll send you a DM, and we'll get that over to you as well. Okay, so Amore. Amore, let's start with the A. A is for audit. A is for audit, and you need to audit your life arenas, right? So what you need to do is, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify the key areas of your life. Okay. Brendan breaks down 10. I won't break those down for you today just for time's sake. But identify your key life areas, things like career, relationships, health, purpose, right? Those kinds of things. Identify what are your key life areas. And then you need to identify what quality means in each area, right? So what does quality really mean? My relationship with my wife. What does quality mean for me? Well, it means that I'm present with her for enough time to feel like she and I have connected on a daily basis. It means that I know she feels that I'm listening to her and responding to her needs, and I know that she is listening to me and responding to my needs, right? That's quality. That's a quality relationship for me and my wife. And then you got to be honest about where you're at in each of these areas. So audit your life arenas, figure out what they all are, and then figure out what quality means, but be honest about where you're at, right? A few days ago, I had to be honest with myself, brutally honest with myself about the fact that I wasn't hitting my quality standards in my relationship with my wife because of that lack of presence in the evening. So A, audit your life arenas. M, measure. Measure what matters. So you have to create specific quality indicators for each arena. So now you figured out what quality looks like. Now you need an indicator, just like you would at work, right? So if you're selling things, then okay, well, I'm going to look for certain product categories because I know I make the most margin in those product categories, right? But it's got to be the same in your home life. So create specific quality indicators. How will you know you're succeeding or failing in each of those areas? How will you know you're succeeding or failing in each of those areas? Right? Then focus on impact in those areas, in those quality indicator areas, right? So if for me, if communication is immeasurable for me and my wife, and the indicator is, did we have at least one conversation that was deeper than what's the weather like? What are your parents up to? What are the kids up to? If we had at least one conversation that was deeper than that every day, that's a quality indicator. So what am I going to do? I'm going to focus on impact for that quality indicator. I'm going to focus my engagement to make sure we have that conversation every day. And I'm going to set a clear and observable metric for success. One conversation a day. Did I have it or didn't I? And I'm going to record that. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to journal that every day. Today, Patience, my wife and I had a conversation about, and I'm just going to write that one sentence about what it was every single day. Oh, so A is audit your life arenas. M, measure what matters. O, optimize your approach. Optimize. So you have to make strategic improvements in your low scoring areas. So once you've figured out what quality looks like, once you've figured out what all the quality indicators are, where do you have deficits? Okay, now we need to attack those. And we need to create systems that support quality over quantity in those particular areas. So let's say, for example, I feel like, the relationship that I have with one of my kids, maybe that's a low point. So I'm going to optimize by putting special focus of intention into that area. What am I going to do? Maybe I'm going to spend intentional specific time with that kid around a specific activity that we both enjoy or that they enjoy, right? I'm gonna make sure that I'm having conversations with that kid about what's important to them, about what's driving their life, right? Doesn't mean I'm neglecting all the other things that go on. It means I'm intentionally focusing on the areas where I need to improve, right? Because while you should always focus on your strengths in everything in life, you also have to make sure that if there are areas that you could improve, that you are improving them. That is your that is your responsibility in the life of work. It is your responsibility in the life of life as well. And then so that's O. So we have audit your life arenas, measure what matters, optimize your approach, and then R, reflect and realign. Review your quality metrics regularly. I would say daily, at least weekly. Celebrate wins. Kat, you said this. Celebrate wins and analyze setbacks. Did I show up the way that I meant to today, or did I not? If I didn't, let's figure out why. If I did, let's go. You know what? I'm gonna have an extra, I don't know what. I'm gonna have an extra cocktail tonight. When I go into my relaxation time, and then adjust your approach based on what's working. So the Amore framework for balancing through quality is audit your life arenas, measure what matters, optimize your approach, and reflect and realign. If you do those four things every day, what you will find is that your work and your life begin to come more and more into balance. So that is the show for today, my friends. I hope that some of that was useful for you. I hope that I hope that you know that I'm here rooting for you guys. That I think you're gonna go out into the world and you're gonna have an amazing work-life balance. Again, hit me up at ideatrainingacademy.com if you would like that tool, or if you would just like to stay in touch, if you'd like to learn more about my coaching programs as well. Thank you guys for being up today, for coming out, especially those of you who came out at a weird time today. Love you guys to pieces. Love you much. And just remember, guys, I believe in you. I think that 2025 is going to be your best year yet, and that we're going to do it together. And above all else, I want you to know that you have a moment of greatness that's waiting for you, but it's not coming for you. It's up to you to pursue your moment. Now, go be great. I'll see you next time.